Wow, what a beautiful day it is today. The sun's out and I'm feeling inspired to make a dish I grew up eating in Zimbabwe. My name is Lynn and today I'll be preparing some sadza along with a beef stew and some spring greens. And these are the ingredients I'll be using to make this fantastic meal. I've got my spring greens, onions, my all-purpose seasoning, tomato. I prefer to use fresh tomatoes, but if you want, by all means, do use tinned tomatoes. Salt and pepper to taste. I have some maize meal here, which I'll be using to make the sadza, and we have the beef there for the beef stew. Okay, I'm going to cut the beef into small pieces, well, manageable bite-sized pieces, to go into my stew. If there's too much fat on the meat, feel free to take it off as well. Here we go. I normally use the scissors for this, it's easier, but feel free to do it the way you like. So the next stage would be to add your seasoning, which will be your all-purpose seasoning, just a tiny bit of that, salt to taste the way you like it, and some pepper as well. And then just put it on a high heat and leave it to simmer for about 15-20 minutes. In the meantime, I'll be preparing the spring greens and the onions ready to go into the stew for later, and obviously have a glass of wine. This is the part I used to hate when I was growing up, because my mom used to make me cut the spring greens and she would make me cut them really thin. But as you can see, they're not as thin as she would have loved them. But I'm trying. Okay, so now I'm going to make the sadza, and because it's a small pot, I'll be using half a cup of maize meal. It all depends on the size of pot that you're using. You might need to use 2 cups of these, or even 3, depending on the size. So it's just half a cup going into that. And I'm just going to add a bit of cold water and make it into a paste. And then add my boiling water all the way to the top. That's about it. And then gently mix it in until it starts to boil. As soon as it starts to boil, put the lid on and leave it for 10 minutes on a high heat as well. Just be careful, because as it bubbles away, it might splatter onto yourself and it's really painful, it's really hot. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit of the maize meal at a time till I get the consistency that I want. Just try and mix it in. So whilst this simmers away, I'm going to continue with my beef stew. It's a lovely texture now. And I'm looking to add the onions now in a bit, once it browns off. So you just leave it fry off, render the fat. And at this stage, I personally wouldn't add any oil, but if you do want to add more oil, it's fine. But because the beef was quite fatty in itself, I won't be adding any oil. So now it's reached the stage where I want it to be. It's like a nice dark brown color. It's been fried off with the fat which has been rendered off the meat itself, which is really lovely because you don't have to add extra fat there. And I'm going to be adding the onions now. So now I'm going to add the onions into my beef. And then just mix the onions in. And then you leave this to fry off until the onions are nice and soft. Oh, it smells gorgeous. I really can't wait to have my food now. And just pop the lid back on and leave it for about 2 minutes. Stir it again and just make sure it's not burning at the bottom. So whilst that's simmering away, what you need to do is just mix this again. You don't need to add anything to it anymore. It's like a nice thick porridge then. The next stage would be to add tomatoes into your stew because the onions are now nice and soft. And just mix that in. And this would be the stage where you turn the heat down. I'm going to put it to a 3. That's a medium heat. So whilst that's simmering away, I'm going to do the spring greens. I'm just going to fry them off with a little bit of oil and a bit of salt as well. So that should be fine. And just make sure the oil is hot enough to fry them off. Just be careful, the oil can be really, really hot. Just gonna add some salt to taste. That should be enough. So I'm just mixing this in to make sure the top is cooked as much as the bottom. And it should be ready. Spring greens don't need that much time to cook. So they're looking lovely. Well, I like them nice and crunchy, but some people like them like really well cooked. So again, it's up to your own preference. Now the food's ready. I'm so excited. I'm just going to plate up and have my food.